Hey there, this is Sabrina with your Watch It Wednesday video for Waffle Flower Crafts, and today we're going to be working with the pattern play and in every way stamp set and coordinating die to create some watercolor painted stripes. We're going to be creating a background design for our cards. So I've got a couple of paintbrushes here, one fat one and one skinny one. And I've got 5 different shades of ink and a little bit of water here in the center of my palette. I'm using an eyes ink. It's a pigment paint, and I'm just diluting it with a little bit of water since I'm using regular cardstock. That's going to keep the paper from warping too much. But if you did want to use another ink product thinned out with water, you may want to use a watercolor paper. So I'm just going across with the large brush here and painting some stripes along the background. Then I'm going to go in with the little thin brush, and then paint on some stripes in the purple. Now I do want to say that doing freehand kind of painting sort of things really makes me uncomfortable. I'm kind of like I like solid, lines. I like math. I like things like that. So doing this freehand kind of stuff where I'm not that comfortable with my drawing and painting skills. So this makes me nervous. But I'm doing it anyway. It's a fun experiment. I think it's a great way to just grow a little bit. So we're going to go back in now with a larger brush, and I'm just going to kind of paint on the side of the brush to create stripes that are sort of a mid width. And I'm just going 2 across the long way and 2 across the bottom. And then we'll go in and add one more thin stripe in blue. And this eyes ink paint, it has an opaque, like a shimmery pearlescent sort of finish, which looks really pretty when it dries. And it goes on nice and smoothly. So I think, like, when I'm starting to look at this now, while I was working on this, it really kind of makes me nervous looking at it. It's not what I hope and imagine it'll be in my mind, but I think that's okay. After it dried and I layered some more things on top, I really decided I kind of liked it. Going in again with the polka dot stamps, which we're going to do next, I think adds a lot of dimension, and adding paper and stamping on top just really adds a lot that takes it from this kind of crazy looking background that I don't feel great about, and it ends up being something that I do really like. So don't be afraid to experiment. I'm going to go in with these larger polka dots from Pattern Play, and I'm inking those up with just a water-based dye ink, and I'm going to stamp those again along the sides and along the top. And I'm letting them overlap. I will end up cutting off the edges of this paper a bit. I have a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 sheet of paper for the background, but I end up cutting it down to 3 3/4 by 5. So I'll have a nice overlap of my card base, and we'll end up cutting off those rough edges. So now we'll go back in with the smaller polka dotted pattern, and I'm going to stamp those again. This time I'm going to use a dark pigment ink, just for a little bit of texture. The pigment ink tends to sit on top of the paper while the dye ink absorbs into the paper. So you get a little bit of subtle dimension from using more than one type of ink. So I'll add those final stripes And then I just want to add a little bit of white paint. I'm going to flick that thick paint on there, and I'm going to set that with my heat gun. Next thing, I want to figure out where I am going to place the sentiment. My method is kind of, what can I do to cover up any mistakes I've made? I'm going to put my focal point there so I can kind of disguise that. So I'm choosing the bottom right hand corner, and I'm just laying the die there. I haven't die cut anything yet, but I want to stamp the so and together from the N Every Way stamp set, and then that large perfect die cut will be cut from some paper to give it a little bit more dimension. So I'm stamping the block. I'm using pigment ink and dye ink, again for a little bit of extra texture. And just press that down, wiggle it around, make sure all that ink transfers nicely. Then we'll figure out where we want to position the so portion of the sentiment. I tend to clean my stamps, all of them, at the end of my card making session rather than doing it as I use them. So I'm just putting them right back onto the packaging for now. So we've positioned that down. I'm going to die cut this perfect from some glittery blue cardstock, and since this glittery paper is a little bit thicker and the die is very delicate, I am pulling the outside away from the word rather than trying to pull the word out of the background, if that kind of makes sense. I found it came out much more easily without tearing or bending the sentiment. And then I'm just going to pop out that circular piece in the P. On the smaller letters, I just went ahead and left the negative portion right in there. I'm going to ink that up with some liquid adhesive. And position that in place. So we've got a fun mixed media card going on here. I'm going to add some more embellishments, some stitching, and some puffy stickers. And I'm going to have a cute card that's great for a wedding or an anniversary. Thank you so much for joining me. For more information about these products, please visit waffleflower.com.